Hey, what's up, everybody? We got some fun stuff to do today. We, like I mentioned in the past two videos, have been discussing all the rosters, but I haven't really given my thoughts on how I think they'll stand up. I don't think I've talked in detail since roster changes have really happened about how I feel these rosters are going to perform. So in today's video, we're going to do all the North American rosters in a tier list. I'm going to tell you guys how I feel going into the season, where I think teams initially will perform. So with that said, get straight into it. What's up, everybody? Lawler here. Going to be doing a tier list for all the North American rosters. And again, this is probably just going to be the top tier rosters just because there is so many. I think I've got like 21 or 22 on the list between North America and then Europe, which we'll cover tomorrow. I've got like another 20 plus. But speaking of the RLCS and how the season is starting to get back into swing, a lot of you have been asking a way to do fantasy. A lot of people, if you guys don't remember, did the whole drafting of teams thing back in the day. And I'm happy to tell you guys that FanRL is our sponsor for today's video. For those of you that do not know, fanrl.com is a website where you can pick players for your fantasy team. The better your fantasy player does, the more points your team gets, and the more points your team gets, the higher your team will be ranked on the leaderboard. The cool thing about this is you have the ability to do it for a multitude of different regions, but the way that it works is you actually end up picking 6 players, and each player has a salary or a cost associated to them, and you're trying to think of the best possible team with the limitation of that money, with the prices and everything else being allocated, and those will get balanced over time. The Rocket League scoring is based on stat averages for the players in their games played, and you can do the RLCS X regions to determine the available players. You can create or join a fantasy league with your friends if you'd like to do it privately. Otherwise, you will be invited to a global league, which will compare you against everybody else that is signed up. Now, I have talked to the people that have developed this website, and they've got some pretty cool stuff planned for the future. But a big thing to remember, even though the RLCS is starting today for the main event for North America, there is obviously all the other regions, and this stuff will continue all the way through the first regional, second regional, and etc. So if you guys would like to sign up, you can do so today at fanrl.com. Links to everything I'm talking about in the description down below. Go check it out. 21 teams on the list, and some of them are tough to read. Like this is NRG, but because of the way the stuff is scaled, it's just a massive R. Either way, we've got 21 teams here for North America. I'm going to put them on the list. You guys know how it goes, best to worst. These are pretty much my world championship contenders, and I'm going to try to pair them based on how I think things will initially go. We'll probably do this maybe once a split or maybe once a regional to kind of show the progression of where I think teams are developing. But this is basically what I've seen so far from open qualifiers and closed invitationals, as well as I would probably go with like some off-season events. So this is going to be pretty tough. I think there's a lot of teams all kind of fighting for the same area. So I'm going to do some of these real easy, and then I'll kind of talk about them as I do it. First up, Team Accelerate. I'm going to put, we'll put them at B for now, and I'm going to adjust accordingly. Right now, Team Accelerate, if you guys don't know, is the team that was formerly known as Zookeepers that ended up getting picked up through their unique way of doing a like double tournament, and then whoever won got signed to a 1-year contract. It's Tool, Bambi, and them. Really talented team, really solid results overall. I just haven't really seen them compete against the top dogs. Accelerate has shown that they can beat a lot of the bubble teams, which is good, but as of right now, through closed qualifiers, their results were actually pretty rough. They do beat teams at the same level as them, but if you look at anybody above them or kind of in that like 8 to 14, 12-ish area, they kind of struggle. So I'm actually going to put them at C. I think they're good, but I don't think they're anything that's going to be overwhelming, and I got to give myself some space here. Up next, Charlotte Phoenix. Charlotte Phoenix is just a tad bit better than them, in my opinion. Charlotte Phoenix does bring in Alraz as a replacement. Beast of Bonham is still playing out of his mind. A team that actually has a ton of potential. It just depends on what consistency. And there's going to be a lot of teams, I think, in this area that I'm like, I need more consistency out of you to really give you an answer. And that's kind of the difficulty I have is these teams are solidified. They'll be there every single time. These are your top 8s almost every day of the week. And then there's other teams where I'm just like, you have potential, but you still mess up for me. So going to be interesting to see on how that develops. FaZe Clan right now, I'm going to put at A. They're not quite S tier for me. I just need a little bit more results from them, even though I know potential-wise they look really good. Now that they are full strength with Illusion, I think they're stupid talented. First and AJ are working really well together. They were the first team, if I remember correctly, in qualifiers to get into the main event. In their invitational, they 3-0'd against Ghost, True Neutral, and G2. So like FaZe looks really, really good. You could possibly even put them in S. I'm just nervous once they start playing against the Energies, the Space Stations, the Envies and stuff. Spoiler alerts, they're all really good, about where they're going to perform. As for G2, probably going to put them at B tier for now. Although I think they're stupid talented, I think there's a ton of potential. I have seen some inconsistencies even from their offense at times where accuracy seems to plague them a little bit. Also, their defense still makes some issues for me sometimes as well. I've seen the high skill ceiling from G2 and they look like they can beat anybody team in the region, and I'll probably bump them up to A if I'm being completely honest. I'll adjust these as we go. But right now, there's some question marks. I do think them bringing in Sathu, former pro, former sub of SSG, as a coach might do some unique things and provide some different perspective from Jazzo. Not saying Jazzo was a bad coach by any means, but I think Jazzo's happy now that he's not doing manager and coach, and having a dedicated coach is only going to make them better because Jazzo's still an assistant coach. It's just manager is his primary role. So I do want to probably put G2 at A for now, but we'll see. I probably would put them at like an A-B+ if I had another tier in here. Next, Ghost Gaming. I don't have enough results for them, but I still think they're pretty solid based upon what I've seen. With Shock and Roll Diz, I think no matter what foundationally, and like when you look at the fundamentals, like they just play super clean and they are going to give you a fight. Any of the teams below them, I think they'll do a pretty good job, but again, it comes down to those consistency things. I think a lot of the teams in this area are going to be ones that I'm like a little iffy on. I do worry a little bit about their offense, but I do know they're going to be really tough to score on. They're going to be that team that you've got to fight through to make top 8 every single time. Like I expect Ghost to kind of be in rotation of the 7-8 spot throughout the entire season until they start really vibing. Again, I just don't know enough or haven't seen enough results. I think we've only seen them really play in one tournament, so it'll be interesting to see on how they develop. Up next, Kansas City Pioneers. Right now I've got at C. Although there's a lot of talent on this roster, I've got some concerns already. Results-wise, even though it's Rodoko, Sosa, and Alpha Cap, I don't know if they have the right results for them. I do know they have a lot of potential, but like you went 0-9 recently. You lost to E United 0-3, you lost to Rogue 0-3, and you lost Charlotte Phoenix 0-3. All three teams that have kind of been underperforming lately, and that kind of worries me. Although I do think Rogue can be on the upside of things, that's very concerning. That is some very polarizing results from the team. So a little bit of concern here, Kansas City Pioneers, and they didn't do all that great either. Like right now, I think they're 1-7 against teams in the RLCS. The only team that ended up beating was Xset, which again surprises me. So they do have potential. The skill ceiling is there, but some concerns. I think they've only been together for like a month or so. So give it time. But yeah, right now it's pretty rough. Energy, clear S tier. I think this is the best team in North America. I think what Sizz and the team is doing is absolutely incredible. I think they are playing exactly what you want in Rocket League. It's very Europe orientated, in my opinion, where I don't think it's big and flashy by any means, but it's the high percentage play. It's what is the most optimal way to play this game. And then all three players have pop-off potential. I don't have a whole lot to say about Energy other than they're just really good. I think they're still in conversation for the best team in North America. And there's only like maybe one or two other teams that I would put in that conversation right now. Up next is Rogue. Rogue confuses me because I know there's some potential on that team and they're still right now trying to, I think, just find a play style. Both players in Turin, Turo, and Taroko relied so heavily on First Killer and his aggressive challenging. And now they've got to work themselves after, you know, what is essentially 10, 11 months of habits. They got to break that mold and be like, okay, someone else has to be the person to go and be aggressive. This is also the first time that I think Gyro's found himself on a team that allows him to play offense. It allows him to be aggressive, but he's still not doing that because I think he also has to break some things. I don't know if it's a communication thing or otherwise, because I've played with Gyro. We got to do it with the PK tournament for the Summer Bash, and like the guy's cracked. I think he's playing the best Rocket League he's played in a long time, but it's gonna take time to develop. I want to say potential that Ghost is in that B area right now. I'm gonna put them at C, but I do definitely think they will jump up. Right now, I've got some concerns, but I do think they will start to be a team that is fighting for top 8 spots. But right now, I'm having some problems with them. Up next, Shopify Rebellion. I think they've been looking absolutely incredible. I think what their biggest issue has always been is consistency. Talk at the beginning of Fall Split last season, they come in and they dominate and they're like a top 4 team and they look incredible. And then they just kind of plateaued. And I don't know if it was due to becoming lazy or complacency, which happened with not just them, it was a bunch of other teams. There was some concerns in regards to would they be able to showcase this chaotic offense. And now that they've got another year under their belt, the team really has made this playstyle their own, which is really exciting. We got to see that at peak form at WePlay, and man, is it exciting. Every pass infield, everything's inlaid just perfectly. They seem to be kind of on a one-track mind, and it's been working great. I think the only thing that docks Shopify Rebellion is I think they have a hard time playing against slower teams, and I think that's part of the issue of what they had in the regional so far. When you go up against teams that aren't considered the top tier, like they definitely play up to their competition and excel at that. But when you're playing against some of these other teams, and the concern I have is when you get a bunch of these other teams like Nefarious and stuff into the mix, they're not going to play at the speed and anticipation that some of these other high-profile teams are. And when teams force you to play slow, you have a tough time with that at times. I think Memory, again, is one of the most underappreciated players in this league. I think Rapid has stepped up as a leader for the team. And again, we're still not talking about Beast Mode, who's absolutely cracked. So I think Shopify Rebellion's a lot of talent, but I do have some concern on the other side of things. And I say these just to provide contrast, but I do think Shopify Rebellion is a team that will consistently and should end up top 8 without a doubt. Up next, Space Station Gaming. I'm just throwing them in. I don't have these in any particular order, by the way. Space Station Gaming, again, is one of the staples. As long as they do not feel complacency, this team is too talented to not be top 8 every single week. There's been some times where they've shown some glaring issues. Case in point, when they played G2, they played like, and that's not just me saying that, that's also Chrome, their coach. As long as they don't have that kind of stuff happen, they should be fine. The fact that they are going to 5 against a good Shopify Rebellion, they're doing 3-1 over a really good Torrent, like the team's good. But there is always that concern of what happens if they have that off week that tends to happen every once in a while. Really good, but like if I was to put them at LAN, I don't know if I can necessarily say they're going to beat out a team like Energy. I say that, but other players have performed pretty solid at LAN before, so maybe a different story. Again, I just think there's 2 that are above the rest in North America right now. Up next, Sonics. Sonics is a really fun team. This team is... I need to see more of it, but already from what I have seen is pretty dang good. They're either really, really, really high C or middle B. I would put them more of like a B, B minus than like a B plus stuff like G2. They're a step behind G2 right now. I think they play really solid. I think the Andy pickup is absolutely fantastic. And it provides a different level of offense. Way more aggressive, a lot of exciting things. I mean, they're bringing teams like G2 to 5. They're bringing Shopify Rebellion really close matches. Ultimately, they are, like I said, one of the closer teams to qualifying for like a top 8 spot continuously. But there is going to be some other teams in that area that they've got to compete against. I'm talking like the G2s and the Ghosts and the Torrents, which I could just talk about because they're pretty much the same logo as Overt. But yeah, both these teams kind of fall in the same category for me. Torrent, which is the former Alpine team, is no longer with Percy. They brought in Kinsey. And I thought that was going to hurt them a lot more because I do think that Percy's one of the most underrated players as well in North America. I think he's absolutely cracked. Statistically, as I've said in other videos, he performed better than Mist, which is saying something. Stats board across all of last season. They did play a lot less series because they got eliminated sooner, but at the same time, when you're putting up those kind of stats, Percy's really good, and I don't know anybody who will argue that. So Torrent and Sonics kind of fall in that same regard for me, but both are really, really good. These are kind of like my gatekeeper teams. You have to go through them, including Ghost. Actually, I'm going to probably bump this down and move this up. I think you have to go through... Well, let's do this. You have to go through Torrent, Sonics, Ghost, teams of this caliber in order to make top 6. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough to find yourself quarterfinals, semifinals this season in North America. Same thing applies to Europe. Up next, we got Envy. I think this is the only other team up top. I think Envy, arguably on LAN, will probably be the best team there. I think Atomic is probably one of the best players in the world if he is on and he's playing his game. The guy is absolutely insane. You're also pairing that with Mist, who is probably one of the best second mans in the world and also has the capability to just kind of really control the pace of the game. And then you have Turbo, who's known as being the most clutch player when all the pressure is on. He's good at adapting, and his mechanics, I hate that people keep sliding him. His mechanics have gotten significantly better. He's been putting effort in, and you can tell. Envy looks cracked. They were my #1 team going into the end of the season last year, but you could tell that the no land thing really took a hit to a lot of teams, and Envy really suffered from it. So when Envy's putting in the hours, when they're practicing, when they're doing their thing, they're insane. So Envy to me looks really good. Case in point, you can look at how well they played at We Play. The lower bracket run, they played pretty much 5 or 6 out of the top 8 teams in the world and just went through everybody. So by all means, they are beatable, but man, are they tough. Envy, Energy, right now, I think are a little bit above the rest. Up next is True Neutral, our first team coming over as a full squad to a different region. We've got True Neutral coming from South America, trying to find a new organization actually right now, and I'm excited for them. AJG, Shad, and Raisebowl, very, very talented. I think they're also in that B category where they will also be in contention for fighting for the top spots. A lot of potential, have shown that they can qualify. They just got to find a way to get used to the NA playstyle, which will take a little bit of time, but I think they're too talented not to. Ton mechanics going to catch a lot of teams off guard if they do not respect the level of play that they have, but they are dropping to a lot of the top dogs right now. The teams that are very, very consistent, you look at G2, FaZe. They did lose recently to Torrent, which I think should show how good Torrent actually is as a new roster, but I think True Neutral as a team, if you look at kind of this list, if I look at these and I'm making predictions, these teams are the ones that are, I'm like, yes, these will beat these 9 out of 10 times, or 5 out of 6 times, or whatever you want to do it. Same thing with the ones below. So realistically, this is why I have a tough time with Rogue. It's just right now I haven't been satisfied with the results. Speaking of not satisfied with the results, we can talk about version 1, where you're hoping to break the stigma, but when so far in qualifiers you are now 14 overtimes, you've played all 10 matches possible, and you're barely qualifying. Kind of hurts. You see the potential when they go up against Envy. They play a 4 or 5 minute overtime in game 5, bring it down to the wire and lose, and then they completely tank against Ghost the next day. There are certain teams that they should absolutely be dominating, but then they only score 1 or 2 goals and they keep it super close. V1 scares me. V1 right now I have at the kind of high end of C. I know potential, they've got the chance to be up here and be in here, but right now they scare me. If I had to give them, I'd give them a really low B-. Still very talented, and they have all the pieces to make it work, but for some reason the inconsistency still plagues them, and they have a hard time closing out series. It's more the same last year. I don't know if my heart's gonna be able to take it as their regionals caster, but it'll be along for the ride. V1 is more the same. If you compare them to last year, it feels a lot of the same, and you're just hoping that they transcend past that. It's going to be a wait and see. Maybe not initially, but once we get into regional 2, 3, hopefully they find their bearings and start to move forward. Up next, we've got Xset, another team I think is really good. I could actually put Xset possibly in A right now, but I want to put them kind of at the front end of B right now. I think this Xset team with Percy is way more aggressive, and they look absolutely incredible. The difficulty, though, is they're still dropping games and need to work on their consistency, just like all the other teams in this kind of B area. But for the most part, I mean, you look at how they played just over a day's time, right? They go from dropping completely some games in invitationals, and then they go into close qualifiers in 3-0, and they beat Nefarious, V1, who they lost to the day before, and Accelerate. Again, they're beating teams in this area, but at the same time, like, again, they're going to be that gatekeeper team, like I've mentioned. All these teams are really tough matches. They're going to fight you to tooth and nail, and to get jumped up into that, I've got some concerns. I also kind of want to put G2 in there at times, but I do think they're a little bit better than that. Up next, United. I have no confidence in this team, if I'm being completely honest, and it kind of concerns me. They've shown they can beat teams, but then at the same time, they like fall apart. Rather than putting them at F tier, I'm just going to put them in and need more results, because I just haven't seen enough of them. I really haven't. To me, the like one weekend is not enough for me to justify a physical like rating for them. Potentially, I just don't know. This is more of a question mark for me. I just genuinely do not know what I'm going to get out of United. Talking about their results so far, in invitationals, they didn't get it. They came in through the closed qualifiers, which they did qualify as one of the top 8 teams there. They were 2nd seed coming out of that, to my knowledge. And in the qualifiers, they beat Kansas City Pioneers. They lose to Integrity. They lose to DVS. They beat Pittsburgh Knights. And then they lose to Rogue. Swept by Rogue. So, like, the results, I look at them, like, oh, I don't know. Like, that makes no sense. Again, it's super inconsistent. I need to see more. I need to know what you guys are going to do. because ultimately it's kind of weird. It is really weird, actually. Up next, we've got Nefarious. I would put Nefarious probably at like a mid-high C right now. I think they've got a lot of potential. Ultimately, like with Nefarious, Adam Buddy and Hockey, I forget how you say his name. They've been hit and miss. They play upset a lot, but it's not consistent enough to make top 8. To me, they're going to be that team that's like in the 12 to 16 area. Sometimes they'll bump into top 8, top 10. But for the most part, I feel like they're going to be behind a lot of these rosters. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think there's plenty of talent, just a lot of difficulty with trying to push through. I think and this is kind of an interesting point with Rocket League in general. I think right now a lot of teams are just at the point where sometimes the other teams are just more talented players. I think we're at the point where you're starting to see some veterans and stuff that have been around for a long time. And some teams just have more notable players than you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the same thing as high draft picks and stuff in other leagues, guys that have been around. Like the Tom Brady's and the Aaron Rodgers and the Mahomes and stuff. Like, the quarterback's just better, and there's nothing you can do about it. It happens. So that's kind of how I feel about this. Like, Nefarious is good, and all those players have been around for a while and have been doing it for a while and are stupid talented. But I think they just get outclassed by some of the people in like FaZe and Shopify Rebellion and Energy and Envy and stuff. And it's not their fault. I just think when I look at some of the teams, I look at the analysis for it, I'm like, the other team's just better, man. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I think they're just better. Up next is Oxygen, and I feel weird about Oxygen because the players on this team are really talented, but they just haven't really been able to put it together. I don't know. They go 1-3. They beat Pittsburgh Knights, which again, I expect more out of Pittsburgh Knights, but I'm just not seeing it. I don't know with Oxygen. LJ is really, really good. Toasty also good. It's Moses' little brother. And Krazik's no one to slouch on either. I don't know. And I don't want to put them in the need more results I don't know category. But that's kind of where I'm at, because like we've seen now a season of them and it just hasn't really happened. I think they're definitely like a top 16 in the region, top 20 in the region, but I just really haven't seen the results. You even go back and look at what RLCS and you look at the overall rankings for North America, and where are they? They're at 15th. Tail end of the season, they did the best they ever did with the spring regional, taking 280 points, which is better than a lot of teams actually. But like, I need to see that consistency, and that's where I struggle. So I'm going to put you guys in like C, middle of the pack, which I don't think any team in particular is necessarily bad, but like, I just can't be confident in it. I don't know. I feel like all these teams are going to kind of fight and get each other out of the way. Next, Pittsburgh Knights. With their results, I don't want to be nice, but at the same time, I know they're way more talented than what they're showing. Being completely honest, though, I'm going to put them in F. And the reason why I say that is because although I do think they have more potential, I feel like their play styles don't work together just yet. Maybe in the future, maybe this will change over the time. The issue I have with PK is that it's just too much of the same. Between Rodoko, Sosa, and AlphaCap, I feel like play styles conflict with each other, and almost reminds me of the old Nefarious squad when it was Adam and Stokely, I think, were on the same team, and they were playing really, really well. But because Stokely was doing so much, Adam was underperforming, and it just didn't work out. I feel like this could be the same thing with PK. PK's got a bunch of talent on the team, but I feel like it's just too much of the same talent, and either someone's got to make a drastic change to their play style, or something's got to give. And right now, we're not seeing that. That may change. We may see, in a week or two's time, all of a sudden, PK jumps back up, and now they're in this area. Like, again, you just never know, but as of right now, I'm having some difficulties with PK. I feel like they could be better, but as of right now, this is where I have them. And last is Vibrance. I'm going to put them in here as well. Although Vibrance has been doing some pretty good things, I just haven't seen enough of them, and that's nothing against them. I will say right now they are beating teams like Nefarious and stuff. They're beating teams in their same kind of classifications. And if you were to say, hey, it's Vibrance versus Oxygen or Nefarious or Charlotte Phoenix or, Accelerate, someone's like, who do you think is going to win? I'd be like, I got to look at the recent results and go from there, because I think it's a coin toss. I think any of these teams right now in the C and F area are kind of a coin flip at any given point. Maybe PK towards the bottom right now because they just did not look good. But ultimately, I look at all these teams and I just kind of pair them all together. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, the bottom 9, not that it's bad. I just look at the rosters 12 in the power rankings and down, and I have big question marks. I don't know what version of you I'm going to get. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's really bad. So I will be curious to watch these teams, and I can assume how these teams are going to perform except for UV1, where sometimes you just blow my mind with what you do. But the ones at the bottom, and I think Rogue I could probably pull up as well a little bit, but yeah, I'm gonna put Rogue back up on the tail end because I do think Rogue has a lot of potential. It's just sometimes they struggle, and I do think they are a little bit better than some of these teams. Charlotte Phoenix I probably pull up a little bit because Beast of Bonium and stuff in them are really good. Most of these aren't in any like particular order, like where they're placed. Like I don't necessarily mean XSET is better than all these teams, but I look at this and I do think that there's like a pretty clear favorites. Just kind of as a reiteration, I think Energy and Envy right now should be the favorites in just about every match they play, and every time we see them play each other, it's always really exciting. I think FaZe has potential to go into that tier. I just need to see more of the dominant results that they show us they can. It's just they're a new team for me. Space Station has shown some inconsistencies, but I do think they are at any given moment potential to win the whole thing. Same thing with Shopify. G2 I'd probably put really high B, but I think there is a separation there, so I have them in A. I could maybe do this even, possibly. But again, I think it goes all over the place. I think you can move some of these in between. I should probably put another tier for teams in between, but I do think there's a clear 1 and 2. I think 2 through 6, there's a pretty good bulk. And then after that, it's good luck. So that is what I have for my NA tier list for the upcoming season. Again, this is just going into the first split. Let's jump over to the other camera as we close this thing out. Again, as a reiteration, this is kind of just how I feel about how teams are going to go right now. And maybe we'll do this before every regional to kind of feel how we think things have progressed since the last regional. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below if you guys want me to do this on a more regular, or if you only want me to do it per split to see the big changes from fall to winter to spring, or however you want me to do it. I think that's a little bit too far of a break, so maybe we'll do this in between regionals. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think a lot of the teams, like especially in that middle of the pack area, I think there is some defined favorites towards the top. Like I think our top 6 are probably going to be the same just about every time. But when it gets into the, like, who's taking that 7-8 spot in the quarterfinals, I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think it's so difficult to predict right now, and I'm honestly really looking forward to it. Which of these teams are going to start to learn to adapt and get over some of those hurdles, because this season is more cutthroat than ever. Having to perform, having to make sure that you make the majors, otherwise you're kind of out of it. Not making top 8 in the first regional pretty much screws your chances, especially for seeding. So this regional this weekend is really important. But with that said, if you guys do enjoy these tier lists, if you guys have your own opinions about how you think certain teams are performing, again, being busy, I haven't been able to get as many of these teams. These are more just kind of my personal opinion from the things that I've seen. Let me know if you guys kind of differ up. Maybe you guys think that other teams should be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Let me know in the comments, as always, down before, and make sure to be respectful of everybody's opinion. We don't need anybody fighting over nothing. But that is going to do it for today's video. If you guys want to see my EU power rankings, that tier list will be out tomorrow. So we'll be checking that out tomorrow. I still got to record it and get that all going. But if you guys do enjoy the content, I do greatly appreciate you guys giving it a thumbs up, as well as hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the latest Rocket League related esports news. But that is going to do it for me, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Peace.